Welcome to the first. You have a story. If you look back on your life, you've done things for the first time that no one in your family, in your town, in the country has done. This is Dr. Sandi. You have unknowingly paved the way for others without knowing it or even acknowledging it. This is where you tell your story so that those who come after you can walk in your footsteps to build their own firsts. I am so excited to introduce you to the incredible Susanne Mariga, a superstar fractional CFO who is truly making her mark in the numbers world. She is breaking barriers left and right, being the first Black woman in her family to graduate from college, the first female member to become a certified public accountant, and the first to work at a Big Four accounting firm. Not to mention, she's also the author of Profit First and the first to become a millionaire in her family. Susanne Mariga is truly a trailblazer and an inspiration to us all. Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Sandi. We are on the first podcast with Dr. Sandi, where we talk about all the firsts that are happening in our lives and celebrate them, and also to leave a legacy for the people who are coming behind us. Today, I'm speaking to Susanne Mariga. I hope I pronounced your name right, Susanne.
You did.
Susanne Mariga. And Susanne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, Dr. Sandi, I am a fractional CFO. I'm a CPA by background, and what that means is I help entrepreneurs that have scaling businesses be able to scale profitable. I'm also an author of a book called Profit First for Minority Business Enterprises, which I wrote in collaboration with Mike McAllowitz is part of the Profit First family, where we teach entrepreneurs how to take their profit first through the use of bank accounts. And we can definitely talk about that and what that looks like.
Yes, definitely, because I don't think that's something business owners think of, especially small businesses. They never think about taking profits and how to take the profits out, right? We really don't know how a lot of times. So yes, I'm definitely interested. So tell me about some of your firsts, because I have a long list here. And as I was reading your list, I like, well, that's me too. That's me too. So what I have, you're the first Black woman in your family to graduate from college, first female family member to become a CPA. Do you have other accounting people in your family?
I was lucky that my dad was a CPA. He had his own accounting firm for over 40 years. And he actually hired me when I was 14 years old to work for him as a bookkeeper. And by the way, guys that are listening that are entrepreneurs, that is a great tax strategy of shifting wealth, right? From that 37% income bracket for you guys that are high net worth into sometimes a 0% no,
Yeah.
tax bracket with your children. And so, he hired all his kids, his 5 kids, and gave us great work experience and we paid for the vacation. So, a great tax strategy from that standpoint. And I've actually hired my daughter in my firm now, and she's working and she's learning cash flow projections and all that kind of neat stuff.
But Suzanne, did you want to work in your father's company, or is it just something that you figured you had to do because you needed help? Like, did you want to be a CPA or in the accounting business?
Well, I started with my dad when I was 14, and I call it babysitting, productive use of your children, right? While
Yeah.
you're keeping them from getting out into trouble. And so that wasn't really a option, but I ended up really enjoying it. I ended up enjoying the world of debits and credits. I did not end up working for my dad when I got out of school. He asked, "Are you going to come work with me?" I said, "No, I'm going to go work for Big Four. I'm going to go work for Anderson." And it was interesting because, when I went to college, I never thought that I would become an accountant. It was something that, I tried different things. I tried sciences, and something about the accounting industry just clicked for me. It was almost second nature. And it was interesting because, starting so young, for you guys that have ever read Malcolm Gladwell, he has a book called Outliers. And one of the things he says is that, to become an expert at something, it usually takes about 10,000 hours. And I laugh because, when my classmates were learning how to do debits and credits, I was like rolling my eyes. It was like the easiest A ever. And, I ended up getting offers of all the Big 4 accounting firms because my GPA was so high, in accounting, and when my colleagues were just starting and they were learning, like, how to do the practical application of accounting, this was like old hat to me, so it was like, "All right, what's next? What's next?" And so I ended up going to hedge fund training, which usually only managers do, my first year of Anderson. I ended up leading jobs after my first year at Anderson, and just had incredible opportunities just because of that head start that I got.
And did your father tell you you had to do the debit script credits, or he just put you on the books, or is that something you have a natural affinity for?
So he was definitely a good teacher. So he was very good at teaching the theory of accounting, the principles of accounting, how things should work. And one of the things that I really appreciate from learning from him was that he didn't just teach how to do something like, monkey see, monkey do. It was more of this is why this works. And if it's broken, this is how you fix it. And that's really a key component, really, with being able to add value in the world is being able to solve problems, right? And what he did, and I don't know if he realized he was doing that, but he was honing in on those problem solving skills and the why behind it, which is what a lot of my colleagues miss when they
Yes.
were coming out of school, when they were learning this is how you do something from a tactical standpoint. The theory was really what mattered.
That's funny because I do a lot of STEM volunteering and mentoring with girls. And it is true that we're guided towards those softer skill kind of companies. I was pretty good at math in school, but I was pretty good at a few things. So math wasn't like a standout. I always got A's. I always, I actually liked calculus, and like those were easy classes for me. Along with, I was a theater major, so I had that side of me, and I was really good at marketing type things. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to. I wanted to be an actress, actually. I wanted to be an actress. But I find young girls are not always steered or guided into that STEM area. So it's great that your dad actually did that for you, which you didn't grow up with that stigma of, that's a boy's field.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and in fact, there are more women going into accounting now than men, so, I'm always surprised when you're hiring, there are more women that are graduating in accounting field than there are men, so, it's a very unique change that's happening in the workforce.
Well, Suzanne, it's not new. We've always managed the budgets in the house. So I don't know why they always thought that it was better for men to actually do the accounting when they do it at work, but we do it at home. So that's just a little difference there. And you were the first to write a Caracas Reviewed Publishers Weekly book. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Profit First for Minority Business Enterprise is a Kirkus reviewed book, and it was selected as Publishers Weekly's editor's pick. And, I really love that book because, it talks about profit first and what profit first is for you guys that may not be familiar with it. And for you guys that are going into entrepreneurship really is, just like Dr. Sandy says, too many entrepreneurs don't take their profit first. They're constantly reinvesting into their business. And what happens is eventually that business becomes we call a cash eating monster. It always needs something. It needs new computers. It needs bigger office space. It needs an assistant, right? That business, it needs a new mentor. It never ends the needs of the business. And what happens in business is something called Parkinson's law. And what Parkinson's law teaches us is that, we're humans, and as humans, we're efficient creatures. And the more you give us of something, the more we're going to use of it. I like to use the analogy of the buffet. If I would go to, you know, the Golden Corral, which we won't speak of, right? The buffet, right? I have never left proud from a buffet. Never. I mean, like there's, I go in and go, I'm just gonna have a salad bar and I see like the plates in the middle, the plates on the sides, the salad bar. You can tell someone has been there too many times. The main course, the desserts, a chocolate fountain, and they don't even let you feel ashamed. They quickly take your plate away. So like there's no evidence that you've done the deed, right? And when you go to a place like that, you eat a whole lot more than you would ever eat at an order of dinner. For example, if Dr. Sandy and I are at WPO, right, now, in a couple of months, and we're having an order of dinner, we've got like a small 5-inch plate, we're gonna leave full, right? We're not gonna leave hungry, but we're not gonna eat like we did at a Golden Corral. And it's simply because the plate size is smaller. And that's how it works with profit first. We create an illusion of scarcity. We create an illusion of small plates, and we do that through the use of bank accounts. So, for example, you have one bank account where all your money is coming in, right? And the problem is if we left all that money in that one account and we spent from that account, we would have the same golden corral effect, right? On the days we got paid, we're like ready to buy new computers or upgrade our software or add somebody else to payroll, right? But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to create these sub accounts that are really based upon our needs, our budgeting needs. So we're going to create an account specifically for profit because reality is if you don't make profit intentional, it will never be intentional. You'll never get profit, which is why half of small businesses fail after 5 years, right? So you're going to be profitable day one, even if you're starting with 1%, you're going to fund that profit account. The next account you're going to fund is your owner's pay account. That owner's pay account is, I always ask entrepreneurs, who's your most valued player? Who's your MVP? And they'll say, oh, it's Susie, it's Mike, it's George, but they'll
Not
never say it's themselves. And I'm
yeah.
like, look, the day you step out of the company, right? And I've sold a company, it's a different company. The day that you step out of that company, it is no longer the same company. And at the end of the day, you are the passion of that company. Sometimes you're the brain power. We know we're trying to transition that, right? But that company's a different company the day that you step out. And so you need to reward yourself the way you reward Mike and Susie and George, right? You need to pay yourself. You would never not pay Susie. And so you need to never not pay yourself. And so that account is set aside just for owner's pay. And
But
then the
Suzanne,
other,
that's something you have to really teach entrepreneurs. And the smaller you are, the more likely you are to not pay yourself because you think mentally, and it happened to us, even though we didn't start out that way. At some point, you're like, oh, if I could bring on another person to do XYZ, that would free me up. And in some cases, that's good. But the money that you would pay yourself, you take it to pay that other person. So when you turn around, it's 2 years you haven't paid yourself, you're putting money out. It looks like you're growing, but you're not growing in your own pocketbook. And
right,
it
you're on the
happens to
hamster
all
wheel.
of us. Yeah, it happens to all of us. And I think there should be a whole class just on that. So I don't know. Maybe you can run the class.
I definitely entrepreneurs need to learn this. And then the next account's a tax account because I've met too many entrepreneurs at the end of the day that they're wondering, how do I pay last year's taxes with this year's money, right? They're financing it, they're asking for installment agreements. And we don't want to be in that position. So we want to save for taxes as we go. Now we're going to use good tax strategy, right? We're going to be working with our CFO and our CPAs to make sure that, we hire our kids and we make smart tax decisions, right? But we need to make sure that we're putting aside for taxes. So we're not worried at the end of the year, how much do I owe and how am I going to pay this? We don't want that to be our problem. And that last bank account, that's our operating expense account. I call it the OpEx account. That's the account that you're going to look at and go, okay, after I funded my profit, after I funded my owner's pay, after I funded my tax, this is all that I have left to upgrade that office space, hire that new assistant, buy everybody a brand new Surface Pro computer, right? This is what I have left. And so suddenly we're operating an illusion of scarcity. And it works because so many business owners, they look at their bank accounts every single day. That's how they make financial decisions of what can
Mhm.
I afford. The day that they just got paid is, they feel invincible when it's at the end of the month and they're waiting for that next check. They're like, wonder if they can make payroll. But And so this works with our natural human tendency. It works with our Parkinson's law by doing this. So that's profit first in a nutshell. Another great thing about the book was I wanted it to be a gift that kept giving. And so what happens with our book is for every book that's sold, a part of our proceeds goes to Hope Worldwide, which is a nonprofit organization. And we
Great.
send girls to school in Zimbabwe. And every year since the book has been published, we filled up a classroom. So I'm so excited about that because it's kind of the gift that we keep giving in this world.
So when you say you fill up the classroom, the money from the book sponsors girls to go to school? Like what's, I'm not clear on
Exactly. So we set aside $1 for every book, and
that.
that goes towards Hope Worldwide, which is a nonprofit organization, and it's restricted funds, and it sends girls to school through Hope Worldwide in Zimbabwe.
What grade are these girls? Is it like
So
middle school, high school?
we try to sponsor the older ones first. We wanna get them into college because Zimbabwe government typically has paid for college, but they don't pay for, the primary educations, and so if they're close to graduation, we try to sponsor that first to get them through. And Hope Worldwide tries to give it based upon, if they're orphans, that type of thing first, so prioritizing based upon need.
Did you say they pay for college but not for
The government, yes.
backwards?
Yes, yes, yes.
You
So
have to get them to college to before you can
exactly.
pay them.
Exactly, exactly, and it's particularly a passion point for me because, for a lot of women, right? Especially in a country like Zimbabwe, they're gonna prioritize the son to go to school first, especially if there's money
Yes.
that's lacking. And so by putting girls to school first, I think that's even more important because
Suzanne, that
now,
happens in
especially in a world of
America.
polygamy.
That happens right here. Boys are still prevalent in going to school. If you had a choice to pay for college, you'll pay for your son, and then you'll figure out if the daughter wants to go. Or I've had friends who were discouraged from going to college because we only have one pool of money and your brother is going to go. And so if you don't get a scholarship or if you don't, you just don't, it's important to you, but you set it aside as a woman. I've seen a lot of my friends do that. Thankfully, my mom was not like that. She's like, every one of you are going to college. And I don't worry about how you take out a loan, do whatever. But I've had friends who said, oh, my brother's going to college, so I'm gonna get married, do something else, take a little job, just because they felt less than.
Oh,
And I hate
yeah.
that feeling. I hate that feeling of people feeling less than who they are.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're equalizing the playing field, and it's even more significant in a third world country where there's polygamy, and you may end up being a second wife, third wife, and I like to think that it's with some of these girls becoming doctors one day, it's gonna be hard to like tell her you have to be a second, third wife.
Oh my gosh. I cannot even imagine. Cannot. It's something that I know is in the world, but growing up in Brooklyn, that's such a far-fetched thing to think of, that not only could I be a second wife, I couldn't work or couldn't do the things that I want to do. So I enjoy hearing about another lifestyle, but I can't picture it because I've never been in it, right? But yeah, I've never been to Zimbabwe. I think I should pay a visit to Zimbabwe.
It's a
Maybe
beautiful
they
country.
maybe they wouldn't let me out though. I'd probably go to jail. But what are some of the things you love about being the first one to do the things you're doing?
You know, I don't know if I celebrate being the first as much as I celebrate the freedom that I have been allowed to give or to experience and the results. You know, um, I would say profit first for our business was a huge changing point. It allowed us to really put our priorities first. Like why do we start businesses? And for me, starting a business was about creating that freedom, right? Setting an example for my daughter to show her we can do this. We can absolutely do this.
Yeah.
Because I started my business when I had my daughter. I had left Big Four. I had left a lucrative job where I was a manager, where I was flying to Toronto every week. And just because I had become a mother, I didn't want to like stop my lifestyle, right? I didn't want to let all my education go to waste. And for me, starting that business was really important. And it became wildly successful overnight because, one of the things that as you do and you have a successful career is you keep those relationships, even
Yeah.
when you leave. And we were immediately able to get some of the largest governmental contracts in the country in our firm. Like we were able to get, the Houston School District, the city of Houston, some of the largest cities in Texas, Chicago,
Oh,
and we were able to grab some of the largest contracts because of the work that I had done in public accounting. We also built a very successful small business practice where we gave valuable accounting services to small businesses that were wanting to grow. And Profit First was very instrumental for me because it allowed me to become the first millionaire in my family because I was literally putting profit first, and not just putting profit first, but reinvesting that money and growing that money. And I always tell people it may not look sexy to put away 1% of your revenue per month into profit, right? But it's those 1% that grow
yeah.
into the millions, right? And 15 years later, after I started my business, I was able to sell that business. That business was an
Okay.
asset, right?
Yes.
And I was able to sell that business and technically retire at the age of 46 and be able to do what I wanted to do, which is, the world of more fractional CFO and working more closely with businesses versus, the small business accounting and tax provider. And
Did
so,
you tell your family you were a millionaire? Did they know you were a
they
millionaire?
know. They know. They know. They know
They're
that their life is a
making
little
her-
bit different than everybody else's, you know. And they've been able to go on vacations, like as a kid,
Yes.
I asked my dad, "Can we go to Disney World?" And he said, "Yeah, one day." We took our kids there when they got older. That's the first time we went to Disney World, and or, trips to Paris, trips to like Mexico resorts, and really give them that. So I would say I'm glad to be a first, but there needs to be more first of us, right? But it's really about, the lifestyle that you're able to elevate into. And be able to enjoy, not having the work, to own your own home and not have a mortgage. Those
Yes.
types of things are, you know, the real gems to it.
And sometimes it's the hidden gem, right? Because it's not the public knowledge, but for you, and I know for me, I was similar to you. I was able to do the same things you're talking about. When I was a little girl, I used to go to summer in Boston because my had family there, or summers in Jamaica because we had family there. And those were the places I knew. And traveling, I love to travel. So once I started making money in the corporate world, that was the first thing. I take weekend trips to places. But I also, like you, had the ability to bring my family with me to do different things in different countries and just get, it was nice to see them see the world in a different perspective and to come back and talk about it. I listen to them sometimes and they're talking about, oh my God, we went to Mexico and the iguanas and I smile because I feel so good inside that I was able to give that to them. But what are some of the challenges that you have for being the first?
So I would say one of the biggest challenge is that the reward, like you do experience different things. You do have different options. Like you could go to, I'm gonna say Canyon Ranch and spend $1,000 a night, and detox and rest, and rejuvenate yourself. But a lot of your friends can't afford that, right? Because they haven't experienced that. And so you have to make that decision. Do I go alone? Do I give someone another trip? Is that really doing good for them at the end of the day by doing that? And so I would say probably that difference between where you've elevated yourself into versus where your peers are, because you're really in a probably top 1% at that point, right? The things that you're able to do, your friends that may have been coming up with you are not going to be able to do most likely.
Yeah, I ran into that too. I remember the first time I had one friend who would always turn down, we can't go, I can't go, I can't go. So as you move up the ladder, you forget sometimes that your friends are not moving up the ladder with you. You might have some friends who are at your level, but some of your friends are not going to be there. And I got really annoyed saying, why don't you ever go with us anywhere? And she said, well, I can't afford it. We were staying at the time, it was like $199 a night. She's like, I can't stay there for a week because that is way out of my budget, plus airfare, plus. After she started saying it, I was like, ooh, I had never thought of that because some friends were saying yes, but she always said no. And we decided to pitch in and pay for her just as it was early birthday present, we said, but we just wanted her to be with us. So we paid for her. And I'll never forget that feeling of being able to do that and being able to give that to her. But I always thought of that anytime I invite someone someplace after that.
Yeah, and you don't always want to be in that position where you're sponsoring, and they don't want you to be in that position either.
You
And so
don't
it's
have you don't have to be. It's just you do it because you want to, not because you feel you have to. And you know what? That was one time, and I really got a lot of joy out of that. And so did she. We enjoyed having her, and we felt like our girl group was, all together. So
right, right. And like you said, you end up elevating into different friendships and meeting along people along the way, but that is one of the challenges that I think that you face. But I also think that it's important to be the pacemaker or be the one that sets the pace, because the reality is, being a woman of color, being a Black woman, right? I can tell you many times where I've gone into a conference where there've been, you know, felt like thousands of people in the room and literally been able to, like, count, like, 5 of us, right?
yeah,
And
and
and,
you do
you
count. You do count.
you do, and these are good conferences, right? They're very educational, they've got, significant thought leaders that are coming in and teaching, but there's not that many of us in the room, and so part of our responsibility is to be pacemakers, to set for that next generation of I did this, you can do this too. It's possible for you. And so our success is important that we do that. It's also important that we teach. When I wrote my book, it was about, I didn't have to write a book, but the book was I said, if I would die tomorrow and I wanted to leave something in a time capsule for my children to find, kind of a how did she do this? How did she do this? What was the secret ingredient? What went into making this happen? That was the book. That was the book that I wanted to write for my children to find this one day and go, "Okay, I see what she did. I can do this too." Um, and I didn't hold back at all in this book, but I think it's important as being first that we set the pace. And I think that right now we're going through some significant challenges and changes that are happening. When I went to college, I was able to get minority scholarships, right? To go to Ohio State University. My parents could not have afforded that when I went. Those things now it's does not exist, right? Because of laws that have been passed in this country. But even with our color of our skin, right? Even if our backgrounds are disadvantaged, we still can get ahead, right? To some degree, we do have to work that theory of twice as hard, right? To be seen as average. So 3 times that hard to be
Yes,
excellent.
average. Yes,
And unfortunately, that's Dr. Sandy, I'm sure you faced it. I had to face it, right? But you learn to slam that ball. You learn to dunk that ball. And that's why it's important to show our girls and our boys of color that we can do this and this is how we do it. Just make sure whatever you choose in life, you're going to be excellent at it.
I was sitting in, I helped to mentor some of the doctoral students at Temple. And one was doing a dissertation the other day. He's graduating, and I was so excited. But his whole dissertation was around progressing in the corporate world and how difficult it is as a Black person or a person of color, rather, to progress. And first of all, I was very surprised they allowed him to come into corporations and do that. When I was trying to do something around flexible work arrangements, a lot of companies said, no, 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 we can't do that. But they did. And I can't wait for him to publish because it's how long does it take a Black person to move up the ladder versus a white person or non-Black person? And he interviewed people at the manager and above level. And I said to him, why didn't you interview people at the lower level? He said, well, because I thought those people made some progress of getting up. So I wanted to study that. But I said, you have another paper to do because there are so many people at the bottom who never even got the chance. Look at how many people are in their job 10 years, 15 years in the same job. They people that come in, they get them promoted, they teach them the job and get them promoted, and they're sitting in the same space where they are. Even if they move to another company, they're just like tagged. This is where you sit in this position. And it's still happening. It happened when I was in corporate. I barely squeezed out of it. But I have friends who have been in their position for years. They get fantastic reviews. Their appraisals are phenomenal. But when it comes time for that promotion, they'll bring someone from outside. They'll bring someone from a different department. And I think they're just too happy with that person. And someone said that to me once. Like, you're too good at your job because you're so good, they're afraid to lose you from that position. Like, who's going to take over and get them promoted? And I said, that is bizarre. But you know what? As I've gotten older, I think it's truer than I thought it was.
Oh,
Some
it's so
people just
true.
enjoy that you're the workhorse and you've been there for 20 years. So now you know everything. I can go to Suzanne to ask Suzanne because she knows where everything's buried. And so why would I let Suzanne out of that area? Because I'm not going to get promoted and my department's going to sink. Don't get me started, Suzanne.
And I was going to share something too, Dr. Sandy. Two things here with this. One, there's a movement now. There's a lot of people that are purposely choosing not to go through management. And this is no matter what race or creed you are, they're choosing not to go through management because it's simply managing is people is tough, right? Managing people is like herding cats. We've been there, we've done that. And there are people choosing not to be managers.
Gen
But
Z, Gen Z.
one of the important things as people of color that are looking to rise, looking to become the first is you have to look at what is going to be the need and the next level. What is going to be the need in this current time in the next 10 years? It's management. It's embracing that and showing that I have the ability to lead. If my colleagues don't want to do it, I have the ability to problem solve and lead. And going after those positions that people don't want because it's too much work, right? It's too much work and showing that you can do that, dunk the ball. I think the next thing that's important for progressing as people of color is mentorship, but not just mentorship, but advocates. So mentoring and advocating, meaning that, okay, you might work under me, but I'm going to train you just like my dad. I'm going to train you how to think, not just how
Right,
to do, but why we do what we do
right.
and how to think and how to fix what is broken. Because reality is we're going into a world where machines will be able to do all the doing, right?
Yes.
But who's going to fix the machines? I
Again.
took my kids to Sam's Club probably a couple of years ago. And it was like one of our first breaks during the COVID time. And I said, kids, what do you see differently? And one of the things they were shocked about was when they went to Sam's Club was everybody was self-checkout now. Like there were like very few people like scanning things. Like they had like
Yeah.
one or two for like the flatbeds. And I said, okay, so what does this mean for jobs in the future? And they're like, well, and they thought about it. And then I had to help them. I said, well, they're like, okay, it means that people are going to do things on their own. They'll need less people. And like, yeah, they're going to need less people because you can scan your own groceries as you leave. But think about it. The people that are going to have jobs in the next decade or 20 years or 50 years are people that can either invent the technology, right?
Mhm.
So problem solvers to invent the technology, right? Like the scanning machines. And the second one is people that are going to be able to security, right? Detect problems like in Sam's Club, theft, right? Somebody need to scan that receipt as you walked out the door, make sure you weren't stealing that gallon of milk, right? So people that are either innovative or people that are going to fix problems or people that are going to enforce the rules. Those are the three jobs of the future.
Yes. And I don't know if I just had a whole conversation with Dr. Hank that I'm airing. It's on aging. And this problem came up about, he said that Gen Z are way smarter than the baby boomers. Like they're not going into the workplace because the workplace has nothing for them. They're starting their own companies because the person that they would be that would be managing them in the workforce, they can teach that person three times as much just because they've gone to the colleges, they've done a lot of the things, and they have the newest technology on hand. I'm still struggling with Facebook, people. These young babies that are born are already using, a phone. And so, yes, I could see that. But we have so many people in this world that are going to be displaced. How do you reskill those people or upskill those people? What are the jobs? Everybody can't be in the position of being the enforcer. What is going to happen to those people? I saw I saw this video about a robot that is now cutting sugarcane. And that robot was going at a rate of maybe 20 men that used to cut the sugarcane for every acre. This robot finished that sugarcane in like two hours, like acres of field in 2 or 3 hours. That's productivity. But then look at the 30 guys standing on the line, sideline saying, how do I feed my family now? Because that one robot took my job. And God forbid they have two or three robots doing that. You know, what do you say and how do you train those people? And how do we take care of them while we're training them? Unemployment, like how do we manage this? We're thinking in one sector, but we're not looking at the overall picture of how this impacts you. And the mindset that those people must have now is like, I'm not worth anything, right? I can't get a job. I'm not skilled enough. How do you train the world,
And I
basically?
think that starts with us being the first and being the example because there has to be a mind shift. And I think from being a first, we realize that we're responsible for our own destiny. No matter what the world throws at us, we're responsible for our own outcome. And as much as we are due a government a government reparation, as much as we are owed that from our history of slavery. I know, my grandfather was a sharecropper, and a generation before you get into slavery. And I
There's no
and I
money in the budget, Suzanne. There's no money in the budget
it, there
for
money is made, right? It's paper. There's money in the budget if you made it, if you
they will
prioritize
tell
it.
you. They will tell you there's no money in the budget.
They will tell you that. But the reality is it probably won't happen in our lifetime. And so it's creating that vision that we are responsible, and it's teaching people to look 10 years ahead? What is the need for 10 years? What can I do that I enjoy doing that is going to add value to the society? And it's difficult. It's not an easy task, but it's the next step. It's the requirement to succeed in this new era.
Yeah, I almost said the word bleak, but it's weighing down on me as I go out every day and I see people who are struggling, and I see people who are still choosing not to go to school, and people who are choosing things. And I'm thinking, what about 10 years from now when you can't get a job? What about your children, to put them through school? Because the more people who are not going to school, is less likely their kids are going to go to school, right? So I think about all the homeless people who are out there right now. I was in 42nd Street the other day in Manhattan, and all the immigrants who are coming in from Texas and from all those other places that's being shipped into New York, and they're sleeping on the streets. I mean, you walk down 42nd and there are people just making their homes right there on the street. If that is starting now and we're an advanced society, what do we have to look forward to? What's going to happen? That feels like we're going backwards, at least to me anyway.
Yeah, and the reality is, I know that immigration is a very controversial topic, but our country needs immigrants, right? We have an aging population. I think I see help wanted signs everywhere I go, right? And it's in every sector. It's from fast food to trades to
There
even
are
accounting.
jobs that people will never want to do.
And even
And
the ones they wanna do, they can't do. There's still need for that. I know there's a shortage even in the accounting industry. And so, there that immigration, that's how we fill those needs, right? Now, obviously, we want people coming through the front door. We want people registering that they're here, right? That makes it a little bit easier for taxes and being able to track people and
mhm,
benefits and that type of thing, and even allocating jobs and retooling and training people. But we need that labor. We absolutely need that labor.
yeah, I know New York is just, they're trying to grapple with the issue and how do we, because we are a state that welcomes immigrants, and they welcomed my family. I'm here because my family are immigrants. So, you know, definitely. There's so many issues that stack on top of each other in this world today. So, what's the future for you, Suzanne?
So I think the future, one of the things that I love about the future is the future has many possibilities, and I love that. There's a documentary that I'm working on right now that I'm excited about, where we're really telling the stories of women that have become the first millionaires in their family, whether they are teachers that saved a dollar right from every paycheck, right? Not glamorous amounts and got there, or women that started their companies like myself that built that, and we're telling our story. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about. I love the impact that we're having in the world from our business. We're
Yes.
helping entrepreneurs create generational wealth. There's nothing that lights me up more exciting than that. And of course, I love being a great mom. So, the future is full of exciting things.
I can't wait. I'm going to have to get your book, Profit First, and probably share that with a couple of the women that I mentor, because I do an inordinate amount of mentoring, and my day to day now is helping women form advisory boards, because that's another thing that a lot of women business owners don't have. So working hand in hand with mentoring, I think we could do amazing things, Suzanne.
Yeah, definitely, Dr. Sandy.
But thank you. This is good. Anything else you want to share where people can reach you?
So the best place to reach me would be, I give out this free it's a table. People always wonder, like, if I'm a business, what's a healthy amount of profit should I have? What's the healthy amount of owner's pay? And I have a free download that they can download this table, and you can actually look at, based upon the size of your company, what percentage of your revenue should be going to profit, what percentage should be going to owner's pay, what percentage should go to tax, and what about operating expenses? What does a healthy company look like? And it's a free give. So if anybody wants to get that and see where they are from a benchmark standpoint, just go to profitmap.co. That's probably the best place to connect with me. Get that download and you'll be able to connect with me. I have my contact information on there.
Well, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to have you. And I hope to see you again in the future because I know there'll be another book after this.
Thank you, Dr. Sandy.
This is Dr. Sandy. Thank you so much for sharing your journey on The First, where no two stories are alike, even if the circumstances are similar. Let this discussion serve as inspiration for others to show what's possible, and more importantly, to produce seconds and thirds.